Commissioner Hardy? Commissioner Hardy?
Commissioner Hardy, you're on mute.
Are you guys talking? Because I can't hear anybody.
All right, so I think we're good now. So Commissioner Hardy, we were taking roll, and it's your turn.
Oh, sorry. Present.
Thank you.
I can hear good now. Thank you.
Chair Vang?
Here. And before we start, do we have translation services available in the chambers or online?
Not today.
All right, thank you. All right, we will now start the Pledge of Allegiance. Everyone, please stand.
You guys are muted again. Can you keep,
Yeah, I can't hear anybody.
the current planning laptop needs to be unmuted at all times. Thank you.
We will now start the Pledge of Allegiance. Everyone, please stand.
Okay, you're mute again, guys.
Ready?
Not the Diego one, the current planning one.
All right, check in. Online, are you, Janice, can you guys hear us?
We can now. We did not hear, I saw you sit down. I believe you did the flag salute, Pledge of Allegiance. We did not hear that.
Awesome. All right. Thank you, Janice. So now I would read the procedures. This meeting is being conducted electronically and telephonically. The public may participate in tonight's meeting by using the Zoom link or calling the phone number provided on the Planning Commission agenda. Please note that all virtual participants will be on mute until they are called upon by the chair, at which point they will be unmuted. If you are a member of the public and would like to comment on the item, use the raise hand function on Zoom, or if you are calling in, dial *9. To avoid any confusion, please wait for the item you desire to comment on to be called by the chair before electronically raising your hand or dialing *9. For each matter considered by the mission, there will first be a staff presentation, followed by a presentation from the project applicant. Testimony from supporters of the project will then be taken, followed by testimony from those in opposition. The applicant will have the right to a final rebuttal presentation prior to closing the public hearing. In accordance with Section 13 of Article 2 of the Planning Commission Rules and Regulations governing the length of public debate, all public testimony from those in support and in opposition of the project will be limited to 3 minutes per person. Any testimony that reference race, religion, ethnicity, economic status, national origin, or any other classification protected under state or federal law in a derogatory manner shall be deemed irrelevant and will not be considered by the Commission in making its land use determinations. If you challenge these land use matters in court, you may be limited to raising only those issues you or someone else raised in oral or written testimony or before the close of the hearing. We will now have the agenda approval. Are there any changes to the agenda?
Good evening, Chair Vang, Commission members. Staff proposes no changes to the agenda this evening.
Thank you. Is there a motion to approve the agenda?
So moved.
Motion to approve.
We have a motion by Commissioner Kreiner, a second by Commissioner Diaz. Please take vote.
Commissioner Kreiner?
Yes.
Commissioner Wagner?
Yes.
Commissioner Diaz?
Yes.
Commissioner Hardy?
Yes.
Chair Vang?
Yes, motion passes. Before we move on to the consent calendar, do any commissioners have any recusals they want to recuse themselves of any of the items on the agenda tonight?
Yes, I'll be recusing off of the Verizon tower.
Thank you, Commissioner Hardy. So under consent, we have two items. First item is ID 22722. This is for the regular meeting minutes on May 4th, 2022. And second is the ID 22800. It's consideration of vesting tentative track map number 6379. Is there a motion to approve the consent calendar?
I'll make a motion to approve the consent calendar.
I'll second.
We have a motion by Commissioner Wagner, second by Commissioner Kreiner. Please take vote.
Commissioner Kreiner,
Yes.
Commissioner Wagner,
Yes.
Commissioner Diaz,
Yes.
Commissioner Hardy,
Yes.
Chair Vang.
Yes, motion passes. Do we have any reports by commissioners? None. Next is continued matters. So under continued matters, we have two items. The first is 5A, ID 22812, consideration of an appeal filed regarding conditional use permit application number P2106304. Maybe please have staff come and conduct a presentation, please.
We just need to confirm that Commissioner Hardy is put in a wait room.
He is officially on hold, yes.
Thank you.
Perfect. All right. Good evening, commissioners. Good evening, all. Thank you for coming this evening. Can we go into, oh, I think we're sharing the wrong screen by chance. 1 second, please. Alrighty, perfect. Thank you guys for your patience. So this is the consideration of the appeal filed against conditional use permit application number P21-06304 and the related environmental assessment. Let's see, is this guy on? It's not moving to the... Can I have the next slide, please? All right, so I first want to give a brief overview with trends that we are seeing with wireless telecommunication towers. Both tower owners and operators have expressed that slimline monopoles with radome canisters are no longer feasible as the modern technology needs more expansive arrays to operate. So what we are seeing are these larger towers with greater antenna arrays, sometimes extending outwards of 20 feet. So one way to address that is to make a new wireless telecommunication tower into a mono tree, as we see on those middle two pictures there, with a mono pine featured on the center left and a mono eucalyptus featured on the center right. Next slide, please. Mono trees have become increasingly better with their aesthetics. This just shows very few of the many samples out there for the different types of faux foliage available to make these trees blend in with their surrounding. Next slide, please. So this conditional use permit was filed by Tricia Knight of TEAK Consulting on behalf of Verizon Wireless and pertains to the parcel at 640 R Street. And the applicant proposes an 80-foot tall monopine cell tower. Next slide, please. Pursuant to Section 15-1502 of the Fresno Municipal Code, cell towers are allowed in downtown Fresno with a conditional use permit, and the tower was compared to Section 1527-59 and issue policy 33, to which it has satisfied all of the requirements. Next slide, please. This just shows the zoning of the surrounding area. To the west and north, we have downtown zoning, and to the east, we have single-family resident zoning with some industrial and mixed use to the south. Next slide, please. In the appeal letter, there were questions about the aesthetics of the proposed tower. Next slide, please. And there was also a concern about the planning department not offering anyone to be allowed to review the exhibits for the application. As stated in the notice of intent to take action and notice of action, all documents were available for review. And we do encourage the Planning Commission to consider the aesthetics of the tower based off of the exhibits provided. Next slide, please. Two of the other issues listed in the appeal letter were alternative locations, which an alternative site analysis provided by the applicant, Verizon Wireless, does cover those locations and why those locations weren't feasible. And the appeal letter also stated that the Planning and Development Department should have considered alternative designs, including a height decrease. When staff contacted the appellant for alternative ideas, they stated that they would state them at the Planning Commission meeting. Next slide, please. So here on this slide, we have a photo simulation of the proposed tree, and on the right, we actually have a live example of it. The tower on the right is over in Clovis by the Aldi. It is by the same exact applicants, SAC Wireless and Verizon. So we can see the photo simulation here is actually rather accurate. This was considered when conditioning the tower. Personally, on the city side, we had some concerns about fully hiding all of the electronics and technology up on top, and our project was conditioned to better conceal those elements. Next slide, please. Here's just a couple of exhibits. On the left, it depicts that there will be a fence over the compound to prevent unauthorized access. On the right, we can see that the proposed tree will be of a similar height to the existing trees. Next slide, please. So staff recommendation is to consider the environmental assessment for the application and to deny the appeal and uphold the action of the Planning and Development Department Director in the approval of the conditional use permit. Thank you.
Do we have any questions for staff from the commissioners? Commissioner Wagner?
Are there any other towers in the vicinity?
There is one across the street on R Street, yes.
So where would that be in relation to the new tower?
It would be, so the existing tower is in the Slush Puppy Warehouse parking lot. This would be to the east on the triangle parcel that's between R Street and State Route 41.
Thank you.
I have a question, if I may. Yes. Were there any alternative locations south of Ventura?
Yes, there was. I don't remember off the top of my head, but Verizon does have that information available for the exact other locations that were considered.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Okay, thank you.
I now invite the applicant to present. Is the applicant in the chambers, or if the applicant is online, please raise your hand.
I have, can you hear me okay?
Yes.
Okay, wonderful. If you could allow me to share my screen. Is it working? Can you see it yet?
Not yet.
No, just a moment. I think I need to promote you, so give me 1 moment.
Oh, there you go. I just got promoted. There we go. Can everyone hear me now?
Yes.
Hello? Okay, wonderful. Well, thank you. My name is Tricia Knight, and I'm with SAC Wireless representing Verizon Wireless today. I did want to go ahead at this time. I'm going to introduce the people that I have with me remotely today that are available to answer different portions of the project as I move through this presentation. And as I do, if you could just make sure that you see them as available so that if they need to speak, they can raise their hand and be accepted. I'll start with Peter Ferrari, who is with SAC Wireless, and he handles the leasing portion and can speak to a lot of the alternative sites that we looked at and reasons why they dropped out and why we ended up at the exact location that we are. We have Walt Coles, who's our radio frequency design engineer, who can speak a lot to the area to be covered and the gaps that we're servicing and that type of information. And then we have Paul Albritton online, who's with McKinsey and Albritton and is Verizon legal counsel and can answer portions of the project as we move through if need be. Moving to the next slide. We've been working on this project since fall of 2019. The way that it works, once the area to be covered is called the area to be covered is considered, and we look at different elements of the project that has to be able to be leased, constructed, permitted, and obviously serve the gap of the engineers are trying to cover. So in January through around July, we looked at quite a few different locations, investigation of alternate sites, and then we started lease negotiations because all of those elements I just described lined up. And so we started the site design in July of 2020, and it takes quite a while to go through all of the different portions of the project to get it actually ready to submit to the city. So in July of 2021, we did that. We were approved in January of 2022 by the District 3 Project Review Committee, and then the planning director approved the project in February. And however, we were appealed, which is what is before you today. Moving on to the next slide, you can see the existing service gap within the city limits. So these green areas here are the areas that are currently servicing the downtown area. And you can see very clearly the red and the yellow gaps in between these existing service areas. There's really no reliable in-building or in-vehicle coverage in eastern downtown Fresno and the residents and businesses along areas east of Highway 41. So, and also the existing facilities here are becoming overloaded due to the traffic of us all using our devices and on the roadways and in our buildings and offices, that this facility would help to offload that capacity issue. So here you'll see it turned on if the proposed facility was to be constructed and turned on, and you would see that it very clearly connects and continues that coverage into the downtown area with a new reliable in-building service to about 1.5 miles of coverage and a population of about 6,100 residents. And along that Highway 41, there's over about 100,000 trips a day, so that would also facilitate increased coverage there. Moving on to the next slide, you'll see that we had looked at approximately 17 different locations. And so, as I described earlier, some of the elements that would have one of those alternatives drop out would be that it cannot serve the gap, or lack of landlord interest. We just simply cannot reach an agreement with the landlord, or we're within a 100-yard facility setback, which in the city of Fresno is requirement that they cannot be within 100 yards of each other. and that there's usually sometimes lack of space, so there's not enough room for our ground equipment, and lack of trees nearby due to the monopine design that we are pursuing. So as you move on to the next slide, you'll see the various reasons why one of those 17 dropped out. You're going to see the last 5 here, or I'm sorry, 6 are the locations that were brought up in the appeal. And we can go over those in more detail one by one, but I just wanted you to see them in a snapshot. We can refer back to them for discussion if needed. So you'll see our monopine design here with the CMU wall and landscaping as proposed. You saw the before, the photo sim here, along with an as-built photo that staff had showed you to see that this really is a good example of what this will look like once it's constructed. Along with the fact that the city of Fresno has an interim ordinance guideline that new facilities would be disguised as a monopine. And so that is where we headed with this design here. And that concludes my presentation right now, and I'm available to answer any questions you might have.
Thank you. Do we have any questions from the commission?
Just before you take out, I just wanted to make sure that all the people that I mentioned in the beginning are able to be viewed by the technical folks, so that if they do need to speak when asked a question. You should have Peter Ferrari, Walt Coles, and Paul Albritton.
All 3 have been added.
Thank you.
Wonderful.
They're currently
Thank you so
on
much.
mute, but they're all there.
Wonderful. Thank you for the confirmation.
Does anybody on your team want to speak on behalf of the project too, or do they just want to wait until there's any questions brought up?
Paul Britton, outside counsel for Verizon. Can you hear me?
Yes.
I'll speak quickly because we're following the appellant in this case. We're not exactly sure what the appeal issues will be that they raise. But I'll just quickly run through the appeal issues that we know about, and then maybe if new issues are raised, we'll get an opportunity to respond to them. And I'll be very brief. As you heard from Tricia, Verizon Wireless has been working 3 years to try and close this significant gap of 1.5 square miles and approximately 6,100 people. And it's a very important area. It serves the east side of Highway 41 in a really underserved area for Verizon Wireless. And in our discussions with the Design Review Committee, they asked that the facility be placed on the other side of the freeway, further away from homes. We looked at 17 locations, as you saw. We looked at 4 potential co-location sites, and they're evaluated extensively in our alternatives analysis with maps showing that the available center lines for antennas and so forth won't provide us the service that we need. And it's a unique location. We're going between our existing Del Webb facility and the area we're trying to cover east of Highway 41. The appellant's principal concern is aesthetics, and we selected a tree in collaboration with the city's policy, which calls for a tree to be placed in that location. It's in an area that has trees adjacent to Highway 41. The appellant is concerned about visual impacts, but in this case, we're over 400 feet away from appellant's condominium complex, which I'm sure you know from prior hearings, we're within dozens of feet rather than 400 feet away from a residential location. Appellant, in their prior presentation, said that their facility is surrounded by lots of trees, which is entirely true. They have trees all around their facility, which also helps screen the facility. One last comment with respect to design. The appellants have been discussing some kind of icon or some sort of cylindrical design, and that's exactly, as your planning director said to you, what Fresno is moving away from. The problem with these cylindrical designs is that they cannot accommodate the expanding needs of the wireless networks to add frequencies that we buy from the FCC, and ultimately cause us to build new co-locatable poles because they're confined by the exterior cylinder of the facilities that you see all over Fresno. And that's the reason why I think the city is moving towards these more co-locatable facilities of the trees rather than the solid cylinders. And that's why this design is preferred over something that would have a solid exterior skin. We'll be here to answer any other questions you may have, but I just want to preface our responses to the appellant's comments. And if they raise new issues, then we'll request an issue to respond to those as well. Thank you very much.
Thank you. We will now go out to the public. Are there any members of the public who wish to comment in favor of the application that are in the chambers? If you're a member of the public or on Zoom and would like to comment on an item, please use the raise hand function. Or if you're calling in, dial *9. And again, this is for in favor of the application. Please state your name, address. You'll have 3 minutes to speak.
Good
Thank
evening. My name is Harry Moore. I reside at 8898 North 10th Street in Fresno, California at 93720. I'm the owner of the property for which the tower is proposed. I'm also an employer downtown. I employ about 100 people. About 80 of them or so reside or work downtown Fresno, right across the street. So having a very good communication system for all of our staff use cell phones for communication and for scheduling and those sorts of things. So this is the tower. It will improve our service. So we believe it's a very important project. So with that, I thank you.
Thank you. Do we have anyone else inside the chambers who would like to speak in favor of the project? Anyone online? If you are online on Zoom, please use the raise hand function. None
No
online.
hands at this time.
We'll go ahead and move forward to any members of the public who would like to comment in opposition of the application that are in the chambers. If you are a member of the public on Zoom and would like to comment on an item, please use the raise hand function. If you're calling in, dial *9. Please state your name, address.
Yes, good evening. My name is Sean Boyd. I'm the Vice President and Secretary.
And Mr. Boyd, I'm going to give you a full 9 minutes, okay? Because my apologies for the inconvenience last time. I want to make sure that you have sufficient time.
Okay.
You'll get 9 minutes of our attention, okay?
Okay, good. Thank you. I appreciate that.
You're welcome.
I just want to start my timer. Thank you. Good evening. My name is Sean Boyd. I'm the Vice President and Secretary of the Huntington Park Condominium Village Homeowners Association. And we have a little bit of a presentation to give you. I don't know if you saw the slides I presented or attempted to present the last time. So I'll go ahead and start. Go ahead and, have I got control of this then or what? Technology. There we go. Okay, so here we are. We have a subcommittee of our board that is here present to talk in opposition to this project this evening. Of course, this was originally on April 20th. The commission didn't have a quorum that evening, and then we lost quorum last time when Mr. Hardy had to recuse himself. So a little bit of history. This project, the condominium project where we live, is really the first modern urban redevelopment area in downtown Fresno. You can see the recorder stamp, January 31st, 1980, when Central Urban Developers had their the CC&Rs and the project actually recorded, and the ground was broken. We've got 88 units in this triangular fashion here, bordered on the north by Huntington Boulevard, to the east, of course, by State Route 41, and to the south as well by Ventura, and to the west by R Street, as you can see. Robert Klein II was the original developer of the project. That's the logo of Central Urban Developers. And of course, when you think about it, it was some iteration of this body tonight, the Planning Commission, that actually had to have approved this project 42 years ago. So now you can see that downtown is beginning to expand in bits and pieces. You can see the energy with Bitwise across the street, making this a true urban location after all of these years. This is what some of the front of our units look like. We have 5 floor plans ranging from 1,500 square feet to 2,100 square feet. So by any measure, this is some of the best affordable housing that the entire community has to offer. And some of our original owners who bought on May 1st, 1981 still live there, including myself. About 2/3 of us are owner occupants. This is an example of our grounds. You can see that we have a park-like appearance, and that was by design. Some of the original trees on some of the original homes before they were torn down were actually preserved in the construction to give the place a park-like appearance. Here you see some of our amenities, including but not limited to 2 swimming pools, 2 spas, and 2 tennis courts. One is actually lighted. And when people come to our place for the first time, they say, you know, we didn't know that there was such a beautiful place to live in downtown Fresno. You can see our homeowners have pride of ownership. They keep up the patios with lots of plants and flowers and the like. So this is a picture looking west on the Mono Street dead end. The Moore property would be on your left, the firefighters on your right, and off camera would be the south wall of our property. And you can see the Slush Puppy Tower in the distance on the other side of Arch Street. So this project as proposed, we have no CEQA argument. We have no NEPA argument. We have no legal argument whatsoever. But we do say this. When we wake up in the morning, this is what we're going to see when we look out our windows. It's an eyesore. And surely the city can do better than this monstrosity that's being planned right here. Now, Mr. Albritton did say that we were proposing as an alternative some sort of a cylindrical design, and that's not true. What we have proposed as a suggestion, and we'll show you a picture in a moment, is more of a decorative obelisk, and we'll get to that in just a moment. You can see in yellow our property is outlined relative to the property of the proposed tower. And once again, here's another site map from the literature that the planning department actually mailed to us, which prompted us to, of course, file our appeal. We know about the equipment that's going to be there. We're not RF engineers. We do appreciate the fact that people need better communication. But your finding B, goal 15 states that the overall design shall be aesthetically pleasing. That's a very subjective statement when you think about it. By whose standards is it aesthetically pleasing? Some of the statements actually say that it will be aesthetically pleasing, and some say it shall be aesthetically pleasing. So I'm not really sure which language is proper. Now, I'm sure that city staff has done their due diligence by calculating that if a motorist were on the elevated freeway at 65 miles an hour, they would be driving past the thing at 95 feet per second, but that's great. But we're not moving. We live there. And this is what we have to see out our windows when we wake up in the morning, if this project is built as proposed. My understanding that Mayor Dyer has a Beautify Fresno initiative, which states from the website, we have allowed the new norm to be one of blight, litter, and debris within our business complexes, streets, neighborhoods, and freeways. So we contend this conditional use permit as proposed will add blight to our downtown mixed-use area. And I appreciate that Verizon has done their studies and have come up with 17 other possibilities that didn't meet their technical requirements, but this is our neighborhood, and this is not something we want to see when we wake up in the morning and go out our front doors. This is looking south. That tree would be in about the middle of that picture if it were built the way it's supposed to be built. This is a view from our street showing the black triangle I've drawn showing where this tower is going to be. And this is a little bit of a close-up of that as well. This is a close-up, and if you look due south, you can also see that's roughly where the tower would be in the center of that photograph. This is our view from the Mono Street dead end looking north, and this is what people would see when they look out their windows. They would see that tree. So you can see bitwise on the left, you can see us on the right, rather, you can see us on the left, and in the distance you can see the firefighters in the Moore Twining property. The other thing that I noticed about Ms. Knight's presentation is that she mentioned that there was some sort of an interim city ordinance requiring that these concealments be faux trees. That's actually not true. There is no such ordinance on the books, and we've got that confirmed with the Planning Commission. So that's really quite disingenuous as far as we're concerned. We would like to see more studies done so this project is not only a different design, but B, also placed in an area that is more exclusively industrial instead of a mixed use of residential and industrial. And the 6 locations that we suggested were on our appeal. We've already gone over that. I'm not going to belabor it. But this is an example of how companies can conceal these towers in a much more aesthetically pleasing way. If they really were directed by you all as planning commissioners to have a second look at this, it's not just our neighborhood. It's all over the city. And we understand and we appreciate the need for better communication. We're not NIMBYs in that sense. No. We're just saying, A, We think the commission can do a better job of forcing the vendors to do a much more aesthetically pleasing concealment of these facilities. And we also think it can be located in the south end of the city parking lot across the street, north of Ventura, behind the Bitwise building. I do have another statement from another resident who couldn't be here tonight. We have our HOA meeting tonight, and we didn't want to change our meeting because we didn't know whether or not you all would have a quorum tonight. So we're glad that you have a quorum, and we have enough of our members conducting our meeting online so that we have a quorum there too. This is from Renee Johnson, a resident of Huntington Park. According to the American Planning Association, APA, a city planner's efforts help to, quote, create communities that offer better choices for where and how people live, with the right balance of new development and essential services, environmental protection, and innovative change. That's October 1st, 2021. You've listened to us describe how our community of 88 dwellings is the first downtown revitalization project completed over 40 years ago. We're asking for help to preserve our unique community that represents residents ages 5 months to 92 years. Homeowners as well as renters, all ethnic backgrounds, all genders, all professions, from laborers to educators and medical professionals. This is a unique community where we can walk the neighborhood and chat with neighbors. We know our neighbors' names and their dogs' names, for goodness sakes. We live together in a rather remarkable harmony considering our diverse backgrounds. Please don't blight the surrounding areas within our view. That's from Joseph and Renee Johnson, who are also residents of our complex who could not be here tonight. Thank you for your time, and it looks like, I think I've exhausted my time, but I would like to turn the microphone over to my neighbor, Larry Taylor, who has more information to impart to you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Appreciate it. Please state your name, address. You will have 3 minutes to speak.
Excuse me, I gotta get my glasses on. My name is Larry Taylor. I'm a subcommittee member for the Huntington Park Condo Association. I live at 2890 Huntington Boulevard, number 163, overlooking, in fact, the proposed site. Now for a 3-minute tour of the neighborhood in our proposed site and the proposed site for the Verizon Monopine cell tower. And that would be the video we're hoping to queue up here. Oh, this will show up on the screen, okay. Okay, now for a 3-minute tour of our neighborhood and the proposed site. We refer to this as the tale of the 2-story living versus the 8-story Frankenpine. The B marks the spot. This is not the least intrusive means of placing a cell tower at a major entryway to downtown Fresno national parks and within view of residential areas both sides of Freeway 41. Here you have traffic going in both directions on Highway 41, overlooking the blighted site, which is an asphalt construction parking lot with no improvements. The freeway at this point is approximately 20 feet above ground level. Many groups of tour buses, families, corporate locations, search firms, and others pass here every day and night. You can see our south end tennis court on the left, and we have the T-Mobile cell tower is about 100 yards across the street, actually to the west, not to the east. Now we go north on R Street, and we see the historic Mux Home. St. John's Cathedral is just beyond, and as well as the federal courthouse, and here we have the City Hall and Federal Building. And we go south, and here's the promenade parking lot, and an ideal place for that, a tower, would be at the end of the canopies, right in the center of promenade. And then On our street again, we have the V-shape. See, we go south of 41 in Ventura, and
Still have 1 minute.
here is the site anyway. Sorry. And we have the federal building again, and Amtrak, and Central Business District in the background, and here is the T-Mobile, right across the street from the proposed to the west. And here's the south end of Promenade parking lot, the south half, I would say. And now we're flying in from south over a well-landscaped, well-established, and well-maintained complex, coming in south, looking south with a view of Bitwise 41 at Ventura, and the proposed site, which shows no improvement over the past 40 years. Now you see the south end of our condominium complex right here, and the tennis court, and we're facing directly where the tower is proposed. And I would like to turn it over to my wife, who has 3 minutes.
That's fine.
See, okay.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Please state your name and address, miss.
Hi, my name is Jerry Starkweather. I'm the owner of Unit 163 at 2890 Huntington Boulevard, which overlooks the proposed cell tower site. Good evening, Peter Vang, Chair, and fellow planning commissioners. I just have a few comments that I've been working on here. There is a thing regarding the exhibits furnished with this application from Verizon's attorneys. The letter dated April 15th, 2022, addressed to the Commission. On page 4, Roman numeral 4, item number 2 states the proposed facility is the least intrusive means in relation to land values. Sean mentioned that not in my backyard, but this has really not been proven here because the option they present is the cheapest looking design for the most blighted and beleaguered lot within view of our condo village. I can actually look out my skylight and see this every day. And so that it's within the view of visitors to and through Fresno via Highway 41. Our area should be also considered a gateway to downtown Fresno, North and South Fresno, and the national parks, where, by the way, they could see actual real trees. In the downtown neighborhoods and community plan, there are goals and policies to enhance the neighborhoods. For example, policy 2.1.8 says to establish downtown Fresno as the most prominent center for cultural arts. Policy 2.11.5, prioritize improving the visual appearance of corridors through streetscape improvements, renovation of existing buildings, and new development. Goal 2.18, interconnect downtown neighborhoods with great streets and beautiful public spaces. Use gateway signage to be constructed of permanent and durable village. We ask for you to think about what future Fresno could look like. This is a chance to enhance both the tower and the city by placing an artistic, iconic tower in a visually suitable location. Thank you.
Thank you very much, miss. Are there any other members in the public who's in the chambers who would like to speak in support of this? In opposition, my fault. Go ahead and state your name and address.
Hi, I'm Marcia Vanderpool. I'm from West Celeste. I'm here on another matter, but I am interested in expressing my opposition to this project simply because of the safety hazards. Before they approved it through the FCC, there was a lack of safety submitted. You can see the lack of safety on childrenshealthdefense.org. I am a member of Children's Health Defense. I am an advocate for children, and I am a teacher, and I am fervently interested in all of you reading about the science of the safety issues of these towers. I would love to see the science that was presented to the city before they were approved. Thank you.
Thank you. Do we have any other members in the chambers who would like to speak in opposition?
This is Sean Boyd again. I forgot to state my address when I first spoke. 2890 Huntington Boulevard, number 123, Fresno, California, 93721.
Thank you. Any other individuals in the chambers who would like to speak in opposition? Do we have any members on Zoom? If you are on Zoom, please raise your hand.
No hands at this time.
Thank you. So now I invite the applicant to provide a rebuttal.
There I go. You can hear me now. Paul Albritton, outside counsel for Verizon Wireless.
Yes, I can.
Thank you. We appreciate the opportunity. The appellants did show an obelisk. That obelisk is actually on a piazza in Italy. And of course, the problem with that kind of design, again, is the exterior surface limits the ability to add future equipment as the Verizon Wireless operates on the frequencies that are sold to it by the FCC. And over those years, those frequencies have differed depending on what the FCC had available. Verizon Wireless operates on 6 different frequencies now, solely because of this limited resource is sold by the FCC when it becomes available. And as we expand our network to keep up with demand, we have to use those new frequencies. And the limitations of an obelisk-style facility make that much more difficult. We're experiencing capacity demands in Fresno right now, as our materials indicate. The number of people logging into our Dell website have gone up 60% over the last year, and our data speeds at peak times have dropped by 50% from the Dell website. And so we're trying very hard to fill that capacity gap as well as the coverage gap. And unfortunately, one person's beautiful artistic obelisk is offensive to another. And so the trees, a natural design, has turned out to be frequently the preferred design of communities, and is the preferred design. And it's not code, but it is in your current policy. Your current interim policy actually requires that new wireless facilities be these faux trees, and that's what we're following. Again, I reiterate, there in the aerial flyover with the drone, you could see there were many trees in the area. And all of those trees will provide additional screening and camouflage for the facility that Verizon Wireless will install, which is designed to fit in with the neighboring landscape with that design. And as I mentioned, we're over 400 feet away from the neighboring, from the appellants. I did want to note, we did, Chair Vang, we took your suggestion. We did meet with the appellants for an hour on a teleconference and tried to go over the issues that we have discussed. And I always think that's a fruitful exercise. Finally, I do want to confirm that the site will be operating fully within FCC guidelines, and the exposure from the facility will be, because of the height of the antennas above ground, there is well below the levels that are allowed by the FCC. And so there's no risk of any kind of exposure above FCC guidelines from this facility. I want to allow any further rebuttal from, we have various experts on the line. Our design engineer, Walt Coles, who designed this facility, he can answer any questions about why we were unable to use those co-located facilities nearby, mostly because of structural problems and having to replace poles and not being able to get the center lines for our antennas. We have an alternative that shows that a reduced height alternative, if we took this height of this tree and reduced it, that it would eliminate some of the most important areas that we're trying to cover. We also have Peter Ferrari, who spent years working with schools, working with landlords, working with the city to try and come up with a location that would be acceptable from a zoning perspective, from a setback perspective, and would have a willing landlord. And then Tricia Knight, of course, who's been carrying the laboring oar and bringing this application forward. So that will end my rebuttal, and thank you again very much for your time.
Thank you. Do we have anyone else on your team who would like to answer any questions that the public brought?
Tricia did have her hand up earlier.
Ms.
Ms.
Knight?
Knight?
Can you hear me okay? Yes.
Yes.
Can you hear me okay?
Yes.
Okay, wonderful. Thank you. Thank you. Mr. Albritton did an excellent job, I think, of summarizing the answers to those questions, and don't have anything too much to add other than the fact that we have really been working closely with staff to do a really good job on this project. Just this morning, Mr. Martinez and I were emailing back and forth, getting specific pictures of the foliage on site of those trees so that we can match that as closely as possible, so that they really will, as you saw in that drone shot, blend into those existing fully developed trees and landscapes there. But other than that, I'm here to answer any questions as you deliberate.
Thank you. Do we have anyone else? Mr. Coles, I would love to hear your comment in regards to why this specific site out of the 6 that the letter addressed, why this specific site is the one that Verizon is choosing.
Yeah, so can you hear me, Commissioner Vang?
Yes.
All right, let's try this one. So is Peter on?
I could begin a little bit for Mr. Cole's apology. Paul Albritton, I guess lawyers are always ready to speak at the drop of a hat, but the principal issue for RF, for what this facility is trying to serve, is we've got the Dell Web building slightly to the west, downtown, which is overloaded. And as I mentioned, the number of users has increased by 60% over the last year, and our download speeds at peak have dropped by 50%. So we're trying to offload that Dell website. At the same time, we're trying very hard to serve the underserved community to the east of Highway 41, east of the Dell website, while also locating the pole on the other side of the freeway, the west side of the freeway, a little bit further away from residential homes. Most of several of the alternatives, the alternative directly to the west would be a co-location with Crown. The center line that's available for us to use is at about 42 feet instead of 72 feet, so we couldn't possibly serve the area that we need to serve. There's also a city parking lot there that was suggested by the appellants. That we have to stay 100 yards away from that Crown facility. That's in your code, so that takes up most of that parcel. And to the north end of that parcel, there's a new solar panel, electric car vehicle charging station. So it would be very difficult to fit a facility between all of those locations. Other locations we looked at were further north and to the northeast, which couldn't provide the service we needed to the Dell Web facility. The facilities that were proposed by the appellants are all further south by the Granite building, the Goodwill and so forth. And they fail to provide the service in the dense residential area up by Highway 41 east of the Dell Web building, and because they're too far south. So that's generally what would happen with the alternatives. And there are coverage maps that show that those limitations of that coverage in our full alternatives analysis. And Walt, I don't know, or Peter, if you want to add anything to that. Or Chairman, if you have any particular alternatives you would like for us to discuss.
Mr. Ferrari does have his hand up.
Okay, go ahead, Peter.
Sure, thank you everybody for allowing me to speak. Again, just to piggyback on what Paul was saying, if we need more fine-tuned details from Walt Coles from a radio frequency perspective, we can. I've been working on this project for almost 3 years. It's been a pleasure to work with not only the board, but the commission in terms of getting this project where it needs to go. There's been extensive months and months of trips to facilities, not only that were originally thought of and proposed, but in addition to that, in regards to what Paul said, eliminating some of the proposed objectives or proposed locations, whether it be for height restrictions. The highway does get higher the further south we go, so therefore the structure itself would have to be a larger structure. So in order to keep within the given height and visual impacts, this was the best one presented out of all the locations that were viewed from an alternative standpoint.
Thank you. Mr. Coles, do you want to speak on this matter too, or?
Sorry, I'm having some audio issues.
You're fine, I can hear you.
Can you hear me?
Yes.
So essentially, a couple of things that come to mind. One of the issues we had, and it was brought up by both Peter and Paul, was that the adjacent site on our street, there was no way for us to get the height we needed on that. There was a 42-foot center line available. We could not achieve the coverage objective that we had to try to reach the residents. We've had an ongoing project with the city of Fresno for digital equity to try to serve the underserved communities. So that was one of the reasons for trying to get this site in the location it was given. We looked at multiple other locations. This wasn't just a, you know, as it was presented, a willy-nilly choice. We took a lot of time to make this choice. I think it's important too that maybe the folks in the Huntington Boulevard condo area maybe keep in mind one thing. I live in the area. I live here in Fresno. I'm just across the county line now, but I was born and raised here. One of the reasons that Verizon brought me in to manage this area over 20 years ago was to try to turn things around. And that started many, many years ago with Mayor Swearingen and moving on down through the other administrations. We were trying to create a new ordinance, which I believe Jennifer Clark and some of the folks that are there today can attest to. We were one of the first carriers in to try to propose these trees and do them in a way that was looking more like a high quality faux tree that you wouldn't see. And I would also challenge, we have a lot of trees along the freeway already. So I'm not hearing a whole lot of objection about how ugly they look. So just to keep in mind, we're looking at this as our city as well. And we want to make sure this looks good. We do not want to offend anyone. We want to try to keep this as good as possible and still be able to meet the objectives that we're out to meet, along with making a co-locatable facility, which is something that Fresno has not done up till this point. And I believe Mr. Martinez can speak to that in more detail. We've had problems with carriers just putting poles wherever they wanted to put them, and we're trying to change that.
All right, thank you very much. Does the applicant want to address any other concerns? All right, now I'll go ahead and close the hearing. Would any commissioners like to ask any kind of questions or comment on this item or make a motion?
I have a question, and this is for the applicant. I would like to know if the property in subject is going to be leased for how many years, for how long, and what happens after the lease expires or becomes void. Can you tell me?
I'll begin, and I'm Paul Albritton here. I'll begin, and I'll let Peter Ferreri conclude. Generally, Verizon Wireless is building its network for some level of permanence. The network is built like sprinklers on a lawn in order to provide adequate coverage to an area in an umbrella fashion that will coordinate with other facilities. So your mobile phone or your portable device will transfer from one tower to the next. So the network is built around these poles. Usually the leases will have a 5-year term with 4 to 5 year options to continue up to usually about 25 years, depending on the changes, technological changes or any number of things. The lease contains, and the city conditions of approval, requirements for the complete removal of the facility at the expiration of the term at Verizon Wireless's cost. I know Peter worked on the lease. Did you have anything you wanted to add to that, Peter?
No, sir. That covers all the detail.
It also requires that we allow for co-location so that other carriers can place their facilities on the pole. And again, the problem that has come up with the Fresno design, the cylindrical unipole design, is that it doesn't have enough space for co-location, so you've ended up with many of these single-use poles. And so I think the intent here is to reverse that trend and allow a facility that allows for co-location, so ultimately a number of those single-use poles can be retired.
Thank you.
Thank you. Do we have any commissioners who would like to make any comments or make a motion?
Have there been any conversations aside from the public hearing you held with those that live in the Huntington Boulevard condos as to ways you could work together to improve the overall aesthetic where, yes, the tower is located at its proposed location, but perhaps there is also something done together to help shield the residents from the full view of that based on wherever the buildings are located. I see quite a few trees throughout the community. I've been there, and it is one of the nicer ones downtown, especially since you have those 40-year-old trees surrounding the property. So any collaboration, any room for collaboration to improve the aesthetic and provide a middle ground?
I think I'll start out, Paul Albritton again. As Walt described, we've been working with the city for years trying to come up with the best way to provide coverage. It's a very flat topography and has certain challenges unless you want to go really tall. And so we have to work with the city in terms of its zoning and design requirements. So in terms of working with the people, we're working with the codes and policies that you adopt and have been working to amend those in public meetings in a manner that will allow us to place facilities in an aesthetic manner, because Verizon Wireless has no desire to pick a fight with the community and put up ugly facilities. We are in the community to stay for a long time. And in this case, so there was an extensive period of time working with landlords who decided that they didn't want it on their property, potentially for aesthetic reasons, trying to find locations that fit within the zoning that is set up in order to direct applicants towards the locations that will have minimal aesthetic impact, design requirements that are requirements that place height and other requirements in terms of design in order to minimize aesthetic impacts. We obviously met with the design review committee and took into account their concerns about, as we mentioned, putting a facility closer to residents on the east side of 41, and we're able to find the location on the west side of 41. And then we also, as we mentioned, tried to spend some time with the appellants. We thought we really had found a place that was 400 feet away from any home and pretty far away from any true aesthetic impacts. As I mentioned earlier, we've had facilities come before you that are dozens of feet away from backyards and homes. And so in that regard, we have responded to the community. I will end quickly by saying, one thing we're not able to do is a master plan of where we're going to put all our facilities for the next 10 years. And the reason that's been true with wireless from the beginning is because as I mentioned, we're provided new frequencies by the FCC. We have to buy them for billions of dollars, and we never know the range of those frequencies that are going to be available to us, and they change the range of distance that they can provide, the amount of coverage that they can provide. And no one predicted that the internet would be created, that the cell phone would merge with the internet. that there would be applications and that there would be this tremendous demand and expansion of use. The CTIA, the Cellular Telephone Industry Association, has said the demand has doubled over the last 4 years. We're seeing even higher rates in Fresno, so the carriers are working very hard to try and keep up with the demand. And in general, people want their phones to work, and they want them to work when they get a wireless emergency alert or when they're trying to dial 911. And as you know, over 80% of 911 calls are now over wireless. So that's a long answer, and it's a long process, but we haven't held community meetings in various areas because we're really trying to design our network to comply with your policies and designs, but would be pleased to participate in any kind of process that the Planning Commission or others wanted to put together regarding design.
Thank you.
Do we have any more comments or questions from the commission? All right, I want to make a comment and a motion. I want to first extend my gratitude to Mr. Boyd and the community of the Huntington Park Condominium Village for your patience. I really do appreciate it. I think ultimately what I wanted to get out of this entire item is to open that communication between the applicant and the community itself. It seems like you guys did engage in that conversation for about 1 hour or so. And if the only resolve is to not build, then us as a commission, we have to rely on what we're given, and that's data, research, and the city's guidelines. And ultimately, the project, when I take a look at it, it does fall within the guidelines. Therefore, I want to make a motion to deny the appeal and uphold the action of the planning director.
I will second.
We have a motion made by Chair Vang, second by Commissioner Kreiner. Please take vote.
Commissioner Kreiner,
Yes.
Commissioner Wagner,
Yes.
Commissioner Diaz,
Yes.
Commissioner Hardy,
He's
Commissioner
he abstained
Hardy had
himself.
to
He recused
recuse.
himself.
Chair Vang.
Yes. Motion passes.
Thank you.
So the second continuing matter is item ID 22710. It's consideration of rezone application number P2200451. It's pertaining to 5.5 acres of property located on the southwest corner of West Buller Avenue and North Del Mar Avenue. We now have a staff presentation.
Good evening again, Chair Vane, Commission members. Will Tackett, Planning and Development Department. Staff would like to introduce Aubrey Richardson to you tonight. Aubrey is a planner too with our department and has been with us, about 9 months now? About a year. She has worked with us as recording secretary to this commission, but it is customary to formally introduce our staff, so please be introduced to Aubrey. Thank you.
Thank you, and no pressure.
Good evening, Chair Vang and fellow commissioners. My name is Aubrey Richardson. I'm with the Planning and Development Department. Tonight, you'll be taking consideration of rezone application P22451 and the related environmental finding.
Aubrey, can I get you to speak up a little? I barely hear you.
Yes. Is that
Sorry.
better? Okay.
Yes.
Can you just hit that? I'm just going to say slide for you. Next slide, please.
My apologies. Before we start, can we please let Mr. Commissioner Hardy back in, please?
I'm pretty sure
He should be back.
he was already, back in.
Perfect. Thank you very much. You may continue.
Thank you. The applicant is requesting authorization to rezone the 5.5 acre lot at 255 West Bullard Avenue from public institution with a condition of zoning to public institution, removing that condition of zoning. So to give you some background on the property itself. Rezone application R41 approved in 2001 rezoned the property. So the property was formerly zoned single-family residential. That rezone application rezoned the property to administrative and professional office, tying that condition of zoning that limits development to a school or a college on the property. In 2015, there was a citywide rezone that was prompted by an ordinance and that rezoned that property to public institution, keeping that condition of zoning. Slide, please. So the subject property is on the southwest corner of West Bullard and North Del Mar Avenues. It's about 5.5 acres and is currently developed with a 2-story building, which is currently vacant and is approximately 37,000 square feet. This building used to house Milan Institute, which is a cosmetology school. Slide, please. The properties to the north of 255 West Bullard are zoned for multifamily residential, and to the east and south, single-family residential, and to the west, business and professional office. Slide, please. Staff did receive a few questions and concerns about the projects. We received 7 calls and 4 emails requesting additional information. Staff did provide the additional information requested. We also received 2 communications that voiced concerns about transparency, traffic, funding, and noticing. So the public institutional zone district is consistent with the general plan public facility land use designation that was analyzed in the EA for the general plan, as well as an initial study specific for this project, which is an exhibit in your packet. So the municipal code requires that notices be sent to owners within 1,000 feet of the subject property. The Planning Commission public hearing notices were mailed out on April 22nd, and the City Council public hearing notices were mailed out last Friday, May 13th. Slide, please. Staff recommends that the Planning Commission make a recommendation to City Council to adopt the environmental assessment P22-451. Staff also recommends that the Planning Commission recommend approval of rezone application P22-451, requesting authorization to remove the condition of zoning and revert the property back to its base zone district, public and institutional. This concludes staff presentation. I'm available if you have any questions.
Thank you. When did you receive the correspondence from the public, the email and the phone calls?
So I did receive some correspondence like around the time the notice was sent out on April 22nd, because the item was continued from the May 4th Planning Commission meeting. Then I received most of the inquiries yesterday.
Do we have any questions or comments from the commission?
Actually, I do. I have a question. Can you explain again, I apologize, maybe I missed it, what the conditions of zoning is? What does it mean?
Yeah, so the condition of zoning limits the development on the property to only allow a school or a college to be used.
Thank you.
Any other comments from the commission? Thank you.
Yes, thank you.
I now invite the applicant to speak and present. If you are online on Zoom, please raise your hand. That's fine. No, go ahead. You can come up and speak. Just please state your name and address.
Good evening. My name is Brady McGinnis. My address is 7090 North Marks Avenue, Fresno, California, 93720, or 93711, excuse me. I'm an attorney in Fresno. I represent the property owner, which is Austin Enterprises. As provided in the history and background of this, we are marketing the property. The property's been on the market for some time. The item that I really want to emphasize and make clear with respect to the evaluation of this is Right now, it is public institutional zoning with a condition of zoning which limits it for school or college uses. And the bottom line is the last user had failed and had to be terminated out of their lease. So I've got a client who the father passed away, the patriarch, the owner of the business. They're trying to get a productive use to an infill project to make this property usable. And unfortunately, as evidenced by Milan, use by a school or an institution is not something that seems very feasible at this point. But again, we realize there's limitations and restrictions that are imposed by the zoning, and any further entitlements or development would be subject to further applications that would be in front of you. So I'm here as well to answer any questions that you guys might have, but obviously we're supportive of the application. And our goal here is to just make the property freely marketable under its existing zoning without a condition tying it to school or institutional use.
Thank you.
Thank you.
I'm going to now go out to the public. Are there any members of the public who wish to comment in favor of the application that are in the chambers? If you're a member of the public on Zoom and would like to comment on an item, please use the raise hand function, or if you're calling in, dial *9.
I do have people in the Zoom.
Okay. We have no one in the chambers. Let's go ahead and let those individuals on Zoom speak, please. And please state your name and address.
My name's Jody Austin, and I live at 1521 Windshire Drive, Windsor, Colorado. I'm just representing the family. I just wanted you to know that we are here and we support what Brady said. And we're here for any questions that you might have.
Thank you. Do we have anyone else on Zoom who would like to speak? Please raise your hand.
Lisa?
Hi, it's Lisa Flores, District 1, corner with Shauna McKinley. I didn't know this property was up for sale, but I would like to see it continued in the zoning that it is. And maybe the family could talk to the city about the city taking over the property, because the city is actively looking for land to build their tiny home village and help resolve the homeless issue. And I think this property would actually work wonders for the greater Fresno community. And the family
Ms. Flores,
could
are
actually...
you in support of this project, or are you in opposition?
I'm in opposition of it. I think that it should
Well,
stay
Ms.
the zoning
Flores,
that it is.
we're
and
gonna
try-
focus on in support first, and then you will have your time to speak afterwards, okay? So any members of the public who are currently in support of the project, please raise your hand. Those in opposition, you will have a chance to speak. If you're on Zoom, please raise your hand if you are in support of the project, please.
None at this time.
Okay. Now I'll go ahead and open the floor to those individuals who would like to speak in opposition. Ms. Flores, go ahead. We'll let you back on.
Sorry, but if you leave it the zoning that it is, and I would highly recommend the family and their broker work with the city to allow the city to take over the property. And there's many uses currently that the city could actually use that property for, whether it's a senior center or if it's facilities for homeless housing, like even what Jerry Dyer wants to do with the tiny homes. That would be great, and it also would provide equitable housing for the homeless throughout the city of Fresno. Thank you.
Thank you. Do we have any members who are in the chambers who would like to speak in opposition? If you do, please step to the podium, state your name and address.
Good evening. My name is Glenda Green, and I live at 5665, excuse me, North Del Mar. I'm 3 houses behind the school. It was prior to Milan, it was also Four Seas College. We've been there 30 years. Our neighbor is an original, been there since '64. Our biggest concern is that the Austins, we don't really know what kind of business they're planning on putting there. And as long as it's been listed since September, and and it just went into escrow 2 days ago based on public information. So it would appear that somebody has known for some time, and we've tried to find out what kind of business is going there. We are opposed to releasing those conditions. We don't want a homeless shelter there. It's just, we have a school in the neighborhood, which is Baird School. We have people that have been there for many years. We have a nice little community, and it's always, we just really don't have any idea what you're planning on doing with this property. And that's the biggest issue, is that there's been no transparency. And obviously, as the gentleman from Colliers can attest, it takes time to negotiate these items, so these sales. So somebody knows, and somebody has known and hasn't shared with us. That's our opposition.
Thank you, Ms. Please state your name and address. You have 3 minutes.
Marsh Vanderpool, 185 West Celeste. I have an open letter for all of you, and for Will Tackett and for Jennifer Clark. I've been listening to planning meetings consistently, and we have been hearing taxpayers verbally informing the planning committee, that they are not being provided timely, transparent information regarding projects that affect our neighborhoods. The city planners ignore the comments, and you move on. I am now experiencing communication issues myself regarding the property at 255 West Bullard. Many of the neighbors that I've spoken with have not received any information regarding the rezoning vote to be held today. Those that were notified originally were not notified of the change of date. Further, the description of the property is incorrect in the first paragraph, leading property owners to believe that it's not the property at Milan. I understand that Aubrey has changed that now, but the public has not been made aware of that. The citizens of Fresno deserve a planning committee, a planning department that is transparent and communicative of all changes regarding properties in our neighborhood. Are you aware that your department's reputation is far from good? I have not spoken with anyone in Fresno that trusts the planning department. They say communication is null to vague, and tax-paying citizens who have invested in neighborhoods are left out of the conversation until the day of the vote. Even people who are or have been affiliated with your department are vocal to us about the lack of transparency and communication from your department. Your department should be acting as a compassionate, transparent neighbor. Instead, you are acting like a bully who ramrods projects through. Change good neighborhoods from safe neighborhoods sometimes to unsafe neighborhoods. And then the people who are paying their hard-earned money and invested in those neighborhoods are left out of the loop. We know there are plans for this, and you have done nothing to be transparent about it. There's more to this letter. Will Tackett has a copy of it. Your response, oh no, I'm going on. Your response is needed. Until your department does better, I feel the need to make a formal complaint on behalf of all tax-paying citizens who have been victims of this city's lack of transparency. Please provide the city's complaint protocol. What can I do, and what will you do to make sure that citizens are informed of new projects the moment they are proposed and before the initial meetings are held in private behind our backs? It's not nice. And it's the people who are affiliated with your department talking to us, they just laugh about it. They say it's status quo. It's part of what they do. Ah ha ha, that's just what they do. It's not nice, it's not neighborly, and it's bullying. And I don't appreciate it. We don't appreciate it. City of Fresno, you need to know these people do not have our backs and they're doing things behind our backs. Stop it.
Thank you, Miss. Please state your name and address. You have 3 minutes.
Anna Padilla, 110 West Dovewood Lane, Fresno. I was not notified of any of this. It was a good neighbor who left this paper on my door, and no one on my block was notified about this meeting and what was proposed, and so that is not fair. And we do not want our neighborhood changed where people are saying homeless housing or low-income housing, whatnot. We do not want that in our neighborhood. And we would like to be notified. Do not go behind our backs and plan all this. And so, yeah, just please keep us informed. We do not want any changes. We would like it zoned the way it is. Leave it alone. Thank you.
Thank you, Miss. Please state your name, address. You have 3 minutes, Miss.
Good evening, Commission, Director Clark, Legal Counsel Gonzalez. I am Joanne Zuniga. I reside at 257 West Barstow Avenue. I'm here tonight in a neutral position personally. I like the building. It's beautiful. It's a beautiful piece of property on Bullard Avenue. I would not like to see it remain vacant. It's 37,000 square feet of a nice property. My hesitation is that the PI zone district allows a number or a variety of uses, some of which I'm not particularly in favor of. But not knowing what the owner's representative and the family want from this property, it's difficult to have more of a voice, pro or con. I wouldn't want a recycling facility, for instance. I don't know what is meant by emergency shelter. There are some of these uses in this stable residential neighborhood, both single family and multiple family. There aren't a lot of homes for sale. People are longtime residents. They take care of their property. Some of us, me, walk the neighborhood and walk along Bullard Avenue and don't have a problem with encountering questionable people, even as close as we are to Blackstone Avenue. So it's important or imperative that the city protect this property and its use so that the neighborhood stays in a very nice, stable condition. Thank you.
Thank you. Do we have any other individuals who would like to speak in opposition of this project? Please state your name, address, and you have 3 minutes.
Hi, my name is Rodney Delara, and I live at 212 West Browning Avenue, 93704. And I oppose this for 2 reasons: increase in traffic, vehicle traffic, and increase in foot traffic. I consistently walk my dogs down down Del Mar every morning, every afternoon, and every evening to Bullard, where the school's at, and back. It takes me about a 20-minute walk. I've been counting the vehicles that pass by for the past month. They average from 16 to 38 vehicles in a 20-minute walk. That's 3 times a day. I have to wait to back out of my driveway to proceed because the cars are trafficking by. Del Mar is a speedway. With its speed bumps, they just speed up to the bump, go over the bump, and speed to the next bump. The traffic stop sign on Browning is blown through daily without even hitting the brakes. People use Del Mar as a shortcut from Barstow to Bullard and Bullard to Del Mar. Foot traffic and vehicle traffic. Now we have to look forward to a low-income housing project on the corner of Barstow and Del Mar. Just wondering what that's going to provide to us. Now the foot traffic. I'd like you to know that when I wake up in the morning and I go outside, I have to see this daily and clean it up. Garbage in my street and in my yard, feces, urine, beer bottles, beer cans, used diapers, banana peels, orange peels, food wrappings, syringes. My house has been damaged and vandalized. I've had wreaths stolen off my front door, doormats stolen off my porch, plants and sago palms stolen out of my yard, a pagoda stolen out of my yard. I've installed a $36,000 of sin loan in my front yard, only to have a strip of it stolen at 3 o'clock in the morning. There's been other thefts, vandalism, car damage, catalytic converters stolen, bikes from open garages. This is ridiculous. We don't want a homeless shelter center or low-income housing or anything else. Leave the zoning alone and experience what the neighbors experience before you guys make a decision like this. Thank you.
Thank you very much, sir. Do we have any other individuals who would like to speak in opposition? Please state your name, address. You have 3 minutes, miss.
My name is Josie Almeida, and I live at 5654 North Poplar. And basically, I'm going to reference section table 15-1402 of the Land Use Regulations, pages 1 and 2, because I have two primary areas of concern if this rezoning occurs, if I understand it correctly. One primarily is that it could be possibly used for a multi-unit residential, AKA apartments. 2, a substance abuse treatment clinic. And I do have 6 questions I would like to ask, and one is really what prompted the rezoning application. 2, why is there lack of communication and transparency, as you've already heard? I only received one mailer that was dated April 22nd with the initial meeting that was going to occur on April 4th, and then it was continued or deferred until today. The only reason I knew that is because I emailed to get a copy of the agenda, which leads to my second bullet, is that why did I have to reach out for an agenda? Why wasn't that provided with the mailer? Third, why are we having to endure this in our area when we're already highly impacted by the nightly street racing that is continually occurring every single night on Blackstone and, Bullard and Barstow? 4, there's a very short wall for the residents who live directly behind the property of the lot. And, if this rezoning occurs, are they going to have a wall that is going to be built higher to accommodate this? As I mentioned earlier, I have a very big concern for the substance abuse center and the apartments. Are these, is it a possibility that, this is going to happen as a result of the rezoning app if it's passed? And as far as, providing transparency and information, when the affordable housing project was built on Barstow and Blackstone, we were not informed about that until after the decision was already made. Fortunately, we did have some input, but it was already decided. I have just 2 special requests. We have a safe and close-knit neighborhood and elementary, Catholic, middle, and high schools within a short distance from one another that consist of many children and elderly individuals. Let's focus on the needs of the children and the elderly. Perhaps a library, a senior center, or a child care center that will benefit our community. Please keep the lines of communication open and let us provide input and be heard, because we are advocates of our neighborhood.
Thank you. Please state your name, address, and you have 3 minutes, miss.
My name is Priscilla Aguayo, and I live at 252 West Celeste Avenue. That's directly behind the proposed location. This is regarding the application P220041. And from what I heard from the lawyer,
I guess they have to remove the conditions of zoning because property is already in escrow or it's for sale, which we had no knowledge of. So this condition of zoning needs to be removed to further and move forward to the sale of this property, I believe, from my understanding. So it states that the classifications, the classifications will continue to be public institution. And that is under the table 151402 under the land use regulations. Now, under those criterias or those classifications is also a big concern that my neighbor Josie just mentioned, that it could possibly be a substance abuse treatment center. This is basically in my backyard. The fence or the wall in my backyard is not high enough for this institution to be there. It could possibly be there. But from what the lawyer said, they don't even want it to be a public institution. Of course, they want to sell it for the highest amount, and they want to put whatever's beneficial for them because it's all about money. Now, for us, the residents in that area, we have a tight-knit neighborhood. We have people that walk our neighborhood with their dogs. They find it very safe. And I think if they change this from a public institution, which it already is, it's been considered a school. It's been considered a college. It was already in that classification. So now they just want to remove the conditions of zoning so that way they can move forward in the sale of this property. And I understand that the family wants to sell it, but I would appreciate it if it would continue to stay a public institution. And I am in objection of it becoming a substance abuse center. And I would like it to be maybe a library or something else that is beneficial for the area.
Thank you. Please state your name and address. You have 3 minutes.
Hello, I'm Ava Aguayo. I'm 15 years old. I live at 252 West Celeste Avenue, Fresno 93704. We are directly behind the building, and this proposed rezoning application is a concern for me and my family's safety because this rezoning might cause different regulations of construction, such as a multi-unit residential, a substance abuse center, an emergency shelter. These public institutions are good and all, but it's a really big threat to my neighborhood. My backyard only has a brick wall as a barrier between the proposed building and my home. It's only 6 feet, so on their side, the ground is higher. They can see right over our fence. My mom just recently saw a man looking right into our backyard, whereas on our side, we can't see over. It's scary knowing at night that someone might be back there. We haven't even seen a tent directly behind my fence. I've swam, and I run inside because I hear something in the back. I hear someone talking, and it's just scary. Also in the vicinity is Baird Middle School and St. Anthony's Church School. I've attended Baird. It's a great school, and I would hate for anything in the neighborhood to pose a threat to that school. And overall, I feel this rezoning application should not change the current regulations to keep me and the other youth in my community safe. Thank you for your time.
Thank you. Please state your name, address. You have 3 minutes, miss.
Hello, good afternoon. My name is Maria Quiñones, and I live 137 in Dovewood Lane, and very close to where this building is. And my concern is about the homeless. We already had a lot of homeless around, and we don't need any more. Please don't put anything like that in there, because we already have issues with them. My car was broken into twice, and then even the recycled bin, you know what they do if we put it the night before? We have to put it late in the morning because they go to look into the recycling things and then put it into the other container. They put it into the grass container, all the the things they don't want it. So we have to go again and redo the things because they make a mess. And that is absolutely horrible. I like to ask you these guys, do you like some kind of neighborhood like that near your own homes? Thank you very much.
Thank you, Ms. Please state your name, address. You have 3 minutes, sir.
Good evening. My name is Leland Vanderpool. I reside at 185 West Celeste. I'm a 20-year homeowner. Greetings, Council, Commission. I just want to say I'm here with many of my neighbors, many I know and many I've just met because we're rallied here. We're all concerned, and our common theme is safety. We want to be safe in our neighborhood. We're all invested there. We've lived there for years. Our children have schooled, our churches. We can walk our streets and feel safe. Until recently, the pandemic has created extra issues these last couple years, but I have seen in the last 6 or 7 years a degradation in our area, such as commonly our mail is stolen right from the curb. Catalytic converters are going missing in cars. Cars are being ransacked by homeless that are living behind the strip malls on Blackstone, 2 blocks from us. We're experiencing these issues just like any other community in town. You get on the neighborhood app and you see these issues in every neighborhood. I would like to see an investment in infrastructure. We need police and fire services close to our neighborhood. Maybe that property could be considered for that. Thank you very much.
Thank you, sir. Do we have anyone else in the chambers who would like to speak in opposition of this rezone? I see none. Do we have anyone online? If you are online on Zoom, please use the raise hand function.
None at this time.
Can we have a staff answer those questions brought by the public?
Will and I'll handle those questions. Will, you want to go first?
Chair Vane, Commission members, Will Tackett, Planning and Development Department. We certainly hearing the neighborhood's concerns. The answer is yes. Any of the uses permissible in the underlying PI zone district would be permissible with the removal of the condition of zoning. The point is the property can't be used for anything, nothing other than a school under the current condition of zoning. A substance abuse facility does require a conditional use permit. That cannot be approved without notification of the neighborhood. Multifamily residential is not permitted in the public and institutional zone district unless it is part of campus housing, which means it would have to be associated with the school. So again, the proposal before you today is to return the zoning to the PI, which is its existing underlying zoning, what was planned under the general plan, what was zoned under the subsequent adoption of the citywide development code. The point is the property can't be used for any purpose, none, other than a school or a trade school with the existing condition of zoning attached.
Well, just to clarify and just to confirm, just want to make sure that the public understands if there's any kind of, you mentioned if there's any kind of substance abuse or whatnot, that's still going to go through the whole process of CUP. The public will receive notification too.
For uses that require a conditional use permit, yes. There are uses identified that are permissible by right in our zone districts within the development code, and there are uses which are identified subject or being permissible with the conditional use permit. A substance abuse clinic is only permissible with the conditional use permit, which means that notification will be sent to all property owners within 1,000 feet of that property, should that type of a development be proposed.
Thank you.
Will?
Apologies.
So to touch on that, so a conditional use permit, there are other components that come into play with that as well, based on its proximity to the schools nearby and the church, correct? Because they're all within that 1,000-foot.
We would notify any property within 1,000 feet for a conditional use permit. Conditional use permits also require certain findings to be made prior to approval. Those include whether or not a use may be detrimental to the neighborhood or the surrounding, whether it is consistent with the general plan, whether it is compliant with any other special provision of the development code. So certain uses, we also have specific standards within our development code for specified uses. Emergency shelters are an example of one. Any development proposed or any use proposed that has a special standard within the municipal code must comply with all the provisions of those special standards of the code. And we are not able to make findings to approve such a project unless we find, one, the use and the project or development, should any be proposed in the future, is consistent with the code, it's consistent with the policies of the general plan, and that we follow any regulations relative to notifications. Again, we have to make findings of whether or not it's potentially harmful to or detrimental to the public health, welfare, et cetera, et cetera. So all those findings are outlined within the development code.
Thank you.
Any more questions from the commission for Will?
I don't have a question, but I'm ready to make a motion.
Commissioner Hardy, let's go ahead and I believe Commissioner Griner has a question.
Yes, Will, can you hear me?
Yes.
I'm looking behind you and I'm seeing some of our communities look a little perplexed just at the kind of the language, and I definitely understand what you're saying. Just wondering, for the sake of tonight and what the proposal on the agenda is, what we're looking for. I know there's been some talk about homeless facility, possible low-income housing, but tonight, just for what's in front of us, we're not looking at any of those. We're simply looking at the rezoning for a later topic of conversation that community developers could have about what the proposal could be. Am I correct on that? And I understand where community is coming from. I'm simply looking at what is in front of us tonight.
What is before the commission tonight is a request for consideration of the proposal to remove the condition of zoning on the property, not change the property from the public and institutional zone district. We are asking the commission to provide a recommendation to the city council. So any rezoning is a legislative action. The council will have to also have a subsequent public hearing on this, which has been noticed. So tonight's action is not definitive. It's a recommendation to your city council.
And do we know when city council will, if we go ahead and let's say that we approve it on our side, when will city council actually review the rezone?
It is scheduled for consideration on June 9th.
Okay. Do we have any other questions from the commission?
My last question is, I'm a little concerned on the amount of the concern of community, the lack of notice that some have expressed. And my recommendation, Brother Chair, is that if there's a possibility for those to have the community as well as those that are bringing the presentation in front of us to have ample time to have further dialogue regarding it, just so that I have a little bit more security and comfortability that community and those that are bringing it before us has had ample conversation. Now, if that conversation that is made available and folks do not respond, then I can feel comfortable more for going forward. But I just see a lot of concern from community.
Yeah, can I add something, Chair?
Yes, go ahead, Commissioner.
I think when the residents are about noticing, it goes out within 1,000 feet. So I think that's probably what you're referring to. And I also think that the council's going to hear this also. So I hate to, on our body, delay a project further to go in front of a council member, and that's their opportunity to talk to our leaders in the area, and they're going to have an ample amount of time to get informed from the developer and talk to their council.
Thank you, Commissioner Hardy. I'm also, my comment, I agree with Commissioner Hardy. I think it's June. We'll give you guys sufficient time to contact your representative. Again, To me, that's the reason why we elect who we do elect in regards to representing your district. I believe your district is Councilmember Maxwell? Tyler?
Chair Vang, my apologies, correction. The notice for the council was sent out for May 26th,
May
not June
26th.
9th.
That's next week, okay. Well, with that being the case, if it's May 26th, I'm in agreement with Commissioner Kreiner. I do believe that communication is essential. It's like a marriage, right? My wife wouldn't be happy if I came home one day and told her that all those plans we had didn't align, we have to cancel it after work. So I'm in favor with what Commissioner Kreiner had to state. I think with that being the case, before I make any kind of motion on my side, I want to make sure that Commissioner Hardy has opportunity to go ahead and make his motion first.
Yeah, I would like to make a motion to approve staff recommendations. It was, for my reading, they were served within a mile radius, and they're going to have enough time to talk about it. And I don't see how we should create more bureaucracy for this project. So I'm going to support this project.
Okay, we have a motion made by Commissioner Hardy. Do we have a second? All right, we don't have a second. Does anyone want to make a new motion? I'll go ahead and make a motion then. I'll make a motion to continue this matter to the next planning department date, our meeting. That's going to be set for
That would be June 1st.
June 1st.
I second, sir.
So I have a motion made by Chair Vang. We have a second by Commissioner Kreiner. Please take vote.
Commissioner Kreiner,
Yes.
Commissioner Wagner,
Yes.
Commissioner Diaz,
Yes.
Commissioner Hardy,
No.
Chair Vang.
Yes. So the item will be pushed to June 1st. Encourage the public to go ahead and reach out to the city staff and have that conversation too, okay? All right, the next item on the agenda is new matters. This is ID 22806. It's consideration of plan amendment and rezone application number P20-04209.
Good evening, Chair Vang, Commissioners. Philip Segrist, Planning and Development Department. The next items before you for your consideration are plan amendment and rezone application number P20-04209, development permit application number P20-04211, and the related environmental finding. The subject applications were filed by Armand Devigian of Associated Design and Engineering on behalf of Baseto Foods. Does the clicker not work? Oh. Next slide, please. The subject applications pertain to 18.9 total acres of property located at the southeast corner of West Church and Southwest Avenues in Council District 3. Next slide. This next slide is an aerial image with the general plan land use map and zoning. The general plan land use map and official zone map currently designate the subject property for medium density residential uses. The properties to the north are currently planned and zoned for office uses. The property directly to the east is currently planned and zoned for medium density single family residential uses. Property to the south is currently planned and zoned for open space and a ponding basin. And the properties to the west, while they're not within the city of Fresno, they are within the sphere of influence, and they are currently planned for employment uses and specifically a business park. Next slide. This next slide is an aerial image of the subject property and the surrounding properties as well. As you can see, the subject property is currently vacant and undeveloped. The property to the north is currently, properties are comprised of an existing food production facility as well as vacant agricultural land. And even further to the north is an existing or other existing industrial uses such as the Foster Farms Belgravia plant. The properties directly to the east are an agricultural orchard, and to the south is an existing ponding basin, which is maintained by the Fresno Metropolitan Flood Control District. And the properties to the west are comprised of a mix of other existing uses, including outdoor storage, auto dismantling, and a truck parking and distribution facility. Next slide, please. Yeah, and also I'd like to point out that the existing food production facility directly across the street is Buceto Foods, one of their current existing Fresno-based facilities. Next slide, please. The subject application is specifically Development Permit Application P20-04211, proposes to construct a 477,470 square foot food production facility. It'll be 2 stories. It'll also include warehousing and distribution. Buceto Foods is a manufacturer and marketer of Italian-style specialty meats, which include salami, prosciutto, and other dried meats. The project, they anticipate to produce approximately 500 to 600,000 pounds of dried salami, pancetta, coppa, and prosciutto per week. In addition, no slaughtering or butchering of animals will occur at the site. Meat will primarily will arrive frozen from other locations. The process also includes non-odor emitting production process, which consists of fermentation and drying in an atmosphere-controlled room. The building will also be constructed to be energy efficient and LEED certified. And 100% of the kitchen equipment, conveyor systems, operational support equipment, et cetera, will all be electric to the furthest extent and powered by solar energy. Next slide, please. This next slide is the site plan exhibit, which has been overlaid over the aerial exhibit, or the aerial image. The project will include full off-site improvements, including curbs, gutters, and sidewalks. In addition, there will be 4 points of ingress and egress at the site. 2 will be along Southwest Avenue, as well as 2 along West Church Avenue. There will also be on-site landscaping and outdoor break areas for the employees, as well as a canopy area. It will also include guest and employee and truck parking. I'd also like to note that all trucks that are coming to the facility are only going to be entering the site from the 2 drive approaches along Southwest Avenue. And then all other vehicular traffic, such as employees, guests, et cetera, they will be entering the site from either of the 2 approaches along West Church Avenue. Next slide. Buceto's current operations, they currently are comprised of 4 separate facilities located primarily within Southwest Fresno, all of which are located west of State Route 99. And currently, their operations generate approximately 8 truck trips per day between the 4 separate facilities. Next slide. Oh yeah, their existing facility is located directly across the street. Next, please. Their main office, refrigerated storage and distribution facility is located over 3 miles to the northwest of the site. Next. Just down the street, down the road along West Church Avenue, less than a half mile away is their freezer facility. And next. And about I think it's approximately 3 miles southeast of the site is the dry storage facility. And again, There are approximately 40 trips per week going back and forth between the facilities. Next, please. The proposed project would allow for Becerra Foods to consolidate all 4 of those facilities into one combined facility. And the project anticipates to generate approximately 10 to 14 truck trips per day. That would permanently eliminate all the inter-facility truck traffic, the daily truck traffic, and just only focus it directly to the freeway access points. And so arriving truck trips will come basically from State Route 41 and 99. They'll travel west along Jensen Avenue and turn north onto West Avenue and then into the site. And departing traffic will be the opposite of that. Come out onto West, head south to Jensen, and head east to State Route 41 or 99. Next slide, please. And then going back, continuing on the truck traffic, truck trips will generally occur during the weekdays and either from 8 a.m. to 12:30 p.m. around lunchtime, or from 1 p.m. to 5 p.m. Again, as previously mentioned, they're anticipating 10 to 14 truck trips per day. Unloading are going to be on the sides of the building, and trucks are, again, as I previously mentioned, only going to be entering the site from the 2 entry points along Southwest Avenue. In addition, truck tractor trailers that are going to be parked on the site are not permitted to idle their engines. And in addition, trucks must be equipped with electrical refrigeration units that'll plug into the loading bay, so that way they don't need to idle and keep the refrigeration units going. Next slide, please. As previously mentioned, the subject property is currently planned and zoned for medium-density single-family residential uses. Go to the next slide, please. Yes, and based upon that residential and zone district designation, the subject property is expected to yield approximately 94 to 227 dwelling units. Under the current planned land use and zoning designation, the proposed food processing facility would not be permitted in that district. Therefore, the subject plan amendment and rezone applications are required to change the property to a zone district and a land use that the use would be permissible in order to facilitate the project. Next slide, please. Therefore, the plan amendment application number P20-04209 requests authorization to amend the Fresno General Plan, the Southwest Fresno Specific Plan, and the Fresno County Airport Land Use Compatibility Plan to change the planned land use designation of the subject property from residential medium density to employment light industrial. In addition, the rezone application component requests to amend the official zone map to change the subject property from the RS5 zone district to the IL light industrial zone district. And the proposed underlining zone district would be consistent with the proposed employment light industrial planned land use designation. Next slide. Next slide, please. And again, this is another slide showing the change on the map going from the residential to industrial. Next slide. And per the Fresno Municipal Code, light industrial plan land use, the light industrial plan land use designation and zoning classification accommodates a wider range of light industrial uses, which does include food and beverage processing. In addition, per the Fresno Municipal Code, general industrial uses, which includes the food and beverage processing, are permitted by right in the light industrial zone district with a development permit. And if approved, the proposed development would be considered consistent with the proposed light industrial plan land use and zoning designation. Next slide, please. An initial study and a negative declaration was prepared for the proposed project. In addition to that, various studies, which include a traffic impact study, VMT analysis, health risk assessment, greenhouse gas analysis, were included with that, and those are all included with the staff report as Exhibit M. Traffic impact study analyzed approximately 7 intersections. The Public Works Department reviewed the traffic impact study with respect to potential traffic impacts, and it was determined that the site can accommodate the traffic associated with the proposed project, subject to complying with conditions determined applicable by the city traffic engineer. And specifically, there was a requirement for a traffic signal to be located at the corner of West and Church Avenue. The VMT analysis also indicated that vehicle miles traveled indicated that the project is within the city of Fresno's established VMT thresholds, and it concludes that there are no impacts of VMT associated with the project. In addition, the air quality analysis revealed that the project will not result in criterion pollutants or in greenhouse gas emissions beyond adopted thresholds of significance. Go ahead, next slide. Oh, sorry, previous slide. Yeah, and as detailed in the staff report, the proposed plan amendment and rezone application would result in a reduction of residential development capacity of approximately 227 dwelling units. Therefore, the City Council must concurrently approve a separate proposal or initiative that would offset the loss of potential dwelling units for the subject site in order to be consistent with Senate Bill 330 and SB 8. Next slide. On October 15th, 2020, prior to submitting the application, the applicant held a neighborhood meeting. Fortunately, that was not, members of the public did not attend. So on January 26, 2022, the applicant held an additional second neighborhood meeting with an increased radius, and there was also proactive outreach to members of the community, such as key stakeholders, to attend that meeting. And the project was well received. On October 24th, 2021, the project was considered and approved by the Fresno County Airport Land Use Commission. On February 22nd, the Council District 3 Project Review Committee recommended approval of the project by a vote of 4-0 with no additional recommendations. A public notice for the environmental assessment was published on March 4th. In response to that, staff has received 3 responses, 3 comment letters. Those are included as part of Exhibit, I think it's N, as part of your staff report. In addition, staff also received an additional comment letter probably about 4 o'clock this afternoon. Haven't had time to go through that, but that will be addressed prior to taking this item to City Council. Now, on May 9th, the public notice of tonight's hearing was mailed out to property owners within 1,000 feet. Next slide. The project is consistent with the Fresno General Plan and Southwest Fresno specific plan. The project increases opportunity, economic development, business and job creation in Fresno. It supports food production as an integral industry and also promotes economic growth by making full use of existing infrastructure and investment in improvements to increase competitiveness. Also restricts proximity by, by consolidating all 4 of the existing uses or operations in Fresno into one. It restricts proximity of new or industrial development and truck routes near residential areas. And by relocating those existing industrial development, it'll be relocating it away from Southwest Fresno residential neighborhoods. And next slide. Therefore, staff recommends adoption of the environmental assessment prepared for the project. Staff recommends approval to City Council of the plan amendment and plan amendment application number P20-04209. Staff recommends approval to City Council of the rezone application number P20-04209. Staff recommends approval of to City Council of the development permit application number P20-04211, subject to conditions of approval. And that concludes staff's presentation. Available to answer any questions, and I know the applicant is also in attendance and does have a presentation he'd like to share as well.
Thank you. Thank you for the very thorough presentation.
Yep.
Do we have any comments or questions for staff?
Yes.
Yes. We have a question from Commissioner Wagner.
So with the other facilities all relocating into the proposed new facility, do you expect job levels to remain the same, or is it going to increase employment opportunities?
I would relay that question to the applicant, but I would say it would by 108. Yeah. 180 new full-time jobs in addition to the existing jobs at those 4 locations.
Thank you.
I have a question. What is the proximity to the new facility that's being proposed in Darling?
And what?
Darling?
If you go, Diego, can you go to the next slide? Oh, can you get back into it? I think there might be an aerial. About a half mile. And I don't know the current status of it. I know Darling was there. I mean, I looked at it today and I don't know if it's currently still in operation there. Again, don't know those details.
And my other question that could possibly be answered by the developer at a later time is the reduction of the 227 proposed future dwelling units of housing. Was there not any surveying of any already zoned areas, with the exception of trying to removing the possibility of homes in Southwest Fresno?
The applicant, from my knowledge, I know the applicant can go into a little more detail, but from what I know, Buceto Foods has owned this property for quite some time, before the most recent general plan that changed it. Actually, it was previously zoned for industrial, and with the adoption of the Southwest Pacific Plan, that changed it to residential. And so for a while, the applicant had intentions on developing this with this site, and now they have to do the plan amendment rezone.
Oh, okay. Oh, wait.
Do we have any more questions for staff? Thank you. I now invite the applicant to present.
My name is Armin Devedjian. I'm the architect. I represent Buceto Foods. My address is 351 West Cromwell Avenue in Fresno. My zip code is 93711. Thank you, commissioners. Thank you for this opportunity. Thank you, Philip, for the thorough presentation. Recognizing the late hour, I do have a presentation that I could go through quickly, or I can just stand up here and answer some questions if you have questions. It is entirely up to you. I have no problem staying as late as you want me to stay, but I will defer to your judgment. I will say a few things to start off. Accompanying me this evening is Randy Hergenroder from Buceto Foods. He's here present in the chamber. Also, Bonique Emerson from Precision Civil Engineering, who prepared the environmental assessment, is here present. I believe Matt Arndt from JLB Traffic should be on Zoom if we have any questions regarding the vehicle miles traveled analysis or the traffic study. One of the questions that did come up before I go into the presentation is that we are actively working with the city on finding those 227 residential dwellings elsewhere. One of the requirements of SB 330 is that at a concurrent city council meeting, at a city council meeting, the upzone and the downzone must happen concurrently. So when the property was purchased in 2007 by Buceto Foods, it was zoned light industrial. It was purchased for the purpose of expansion at a future time. They purchased 19 acres with this intention. In 2017, as a result of the Southwest Specific Plan's adoption, the land was, in essence, zoned out from under them to medium-density residential. In May 2020 was the first DRC meeting when Bucero approached the city and expressed their intention to fulfill their desire to develop the property for this purpose. And they were made aware, I think about halfway through the process, we were made aware of SB 330, and we began having conversations with Councilmember Arias's office and the mayor's office, Mayor Dyer's office, about what we could do to offset the homes that we would be, the potential homes we would be losing by undoing what was done through this rezone. We have been informed by both the mayor's office and the council member's office that the MUTA, the Mixed Use Text Amendment, is in process. We are hoping that it will go to council sometime in June or July. Director Clark can correct me. And that will be used as the offset for our loss of 227 housing units. I think one of the important things to point out is this is truly a consolidation of 4 uses into one, 4 properties into one. As Philip mentioned, we are going to be completely eliminating 40 internal daily truck trips every week. So no more trucks rumbling up and down city streets, neighborhood streets, residential streets. Surface traffic will be completely eliminated. The only traffic we are going to have for Bucero Foods, a multi-million-dollar company operating in Fresno that very few people know about for the amount of product they actually have throughout the United States, would be the truck trips going out of our facility south on West and then east on Jensen to either Freeway 41 or Freeway 99, and the reverse, obviously, getting off the freeway at Jensen, traveling westbound on Jensen, and then northbound on West. The parking lot on Church Avenue will be solely for the purposes of employees and for guests. So no truck traffic is allowed on Church Avenue, which is the elimination, again, of trucks that are currently traveling on Church to get to the facility that's currently there north of Church Avenue. The addition of 206 parking spaces on site is going to eliminate between 50 and 60 cars that are parked on Church every day. Currently, the current Bucero facility does not have enough parking for their employees, and unfortunately, about 50 cars every day are parked along Church Avenue. Those will all be taken on-site, so off of the city streets. One of the benefits of this project is the actual and real partnership that we have experienced with the stakeholders, with the legacy leaders in Southwest Fresno, with residents and with the community. As Philip mentioned, our first neighborhood meeting was not well attended at all. Our second meeting was very well attended, and a real dialogue took place with the legacy leaders and the stakeholders. Many members of the community participated, many residents participated, and I think it would be safe to say, and I don't want to be the one to couch it this way, but I think we actually have advocates now within the community that are in favor of this project for several reasons. The consolidation of the traffic, the reduction of noise pollution, the improvement to the aesthetic along Church Avenue. This facility is going to anchor at the city limits what is going to become a thoroughfare along Church of campuses. The new Bucero facility will be truly a campus that you can be proud of, and I'm going to show you some photos in a minute. It is going to complement Gaston Middle School and the new West Fresno campus, I believe it's called, of City College. The company that is building this building was established in Italy in 1812. 7 generations of the same family operate this food production facility. They have 28 worldwide. They build to highly efficient, highly energy conscious European standards, and they have every intention of doing the same thing in Fresno that they did in Mount Olive, New Jersey. In Mount Olive, New Jersey, they currently operate a similar facility, about 300,000 square feet, that is state-of-the-art, and it is actually built in the middle of an industrial office park, not somewhere you would expect to see a food production facility. But the use of their materials, the aesthetic appearance of the building, we're not building a concrete bunker. The fact that it looks like an office building from the outside, from the inside, the facilities are very aesthetically pleasing. and complementing the fact that there is no butchering, there is no odor, there is no, I mean, you are all invited to tour the facility. Many people from the community have. It is remarkably clean. You feel like you're walking into a clean room at times only because of the necessary USDA and FDA guidelines that are in place to keep the food sanitized. So if I can please ask to go to the first slide. Nope. I'm sorry. I'm not sure this is the right presentation. It should have been in a folder called Planning Commission. This is it. This is correct. Oh. Okay. Well, maybe this is how it was meant to be. So, as I mentioned, there will be plentiful landscaping on site. There will be green areas and walking pathways that are accessible for the employees to take their breaks. There is an outdoor pavilion. This was actually planned before COVID, but now in light of COVID, there is an emphasis on getting our staff and the staff of the facility outdoor as much as possible. So there's an outdoor covered pavilion in order for people to take breaks and have their lunches. It will be aesthetically probably the best looking thing on Church Avenue other than Gaston Middle School and the City College. So again, I know it's late. I don't want to belabor this process any more than necessary. I'm happy to answer any questions.
Question for you.
Yes.
So backing on Commissioner Commissioner Wagner's question in regards to the jobs created. How many right now within those facilities do you actually employ?
So I'm going to let Randy discuss current employment numbers. I will say that the 2 of the 4 facilities are storage facilities. One's a freezer and one's a dry storage. So those aren't actively, manned. So by eliminating 2 of the 4 facilities, all we're doing is solely eliminating truck traffic that constantly goes back and forth between the other 2. But if you include the office on Olive or on Crystal and the current plant, total employment is approximately 160 current employment.
Okay. And then we're going to go ahead and add another 180. Okay. So we'll have
at full build out, yes.
About 340 jobs created total.
Yeah, that would be the goal, yes.
Okay. And then with the sites that the other sites, once you guys are consolidating, what's going to happen to the older sites?
The 2 of the facilities are leased. So the freezer facility is leased and the dry storage is leased. The office would most likely be sold. We don't plan on continuing to occupy the office at Crystal, which is off of Olive and 99. We don't know yet exactly what is going to happen to the facility that's directly across the street, the one on the north side of Church Avenue. It may be retooled, it may be repurposed, it may be sold.
Okay, thank you. Any questions from the commission?
I have a question.
Yes, please.
The 227 dwelling that you're going to be looking into moving elsewhere, would that be Southwest Fresno?
Yes.
What about the employment, the new added employment people that you will be hiring, 180? Would they be Fresno residents, or are you bringing people from the outside?
We actually did a study when we began the vehicle miles travel to determine where the employees for Bucetto Foods live. Over, I think, 80% live within 5 miles of the existing facility. Yes, so the purpose is to obviously hire locally, hire as many Southwest Fresno residents as possible, and to that end, we've done 2 things. We have committed to host 3 to 4 career opportunity job fairs every year, targeting Southwest Fresno residents for potential employment, And we've also begun conversations with the new City College campus in order to have a career center, even maybe a pop-up regularly, recruiting for Bucetto Foods. I know that Bucetto is constantly recruiting for staff, and they would take any opportunity they can to find talented people that want to work for Bucetto.
Thank you.
Question.
Yes, sir.
The trucks that you were mentioning, past history in Southwest Fresno has suggested that trucks carrying and taking to places have leaked fluids. You stated that your trucks do not do that, right? You're saying that there is the absolute zero possibility that there will be anything leaked from the trucks on the streets. Am I correct on that?
I can't control what the trucks do. I can tell you that there is an effort underway in the industry, and especially in the state of California, to try to maximize the electrification of trucks. And so our trucks that are on site will not be idling and will be plugged in for refrigeration units. Our trucks that are traveling from the building itself, from our facility to 99 and back to the facility, nothing will be dripping from the trucks in terms of meat product or blood or gore. I mean, if it's dripping oil, I can't.
No, I'm talking about produce.
Yes, no, there will be no food, absolutely not, because the product arrives frozen, and when it gets shipped out, it's already packaged for sale.
Okay.
Do we have any other questions from the commission? Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Does the representative want to speak too?
Randy?
I did add Matt to the panel as well, for the record.
Oh, thank you very much.
Matt, do you want to speak too?
Can you hear me?
Yes.
I believe Armin has summed up this well. VMTs performed well under the City of Fresno threshold, and any traffic delays to intersections has been recommended, and a fair share analysis is being worked on. That is all.
Thank you. I'll now go out to the public. Are there any members of the public who wish to comment in favor of the application that are in the chambers? If you are a member of the public on Zoom and would like to comment on the item, please use the raise hand function. If you're calling in, dial *9. Do we have anyone on Zoom? Please raise your hand.
John, you've been added.
John,
yes, thank you.
State
Good
your
evening.
name and address, please.
Yes, good evening, Commissioners and Chair Vang. My name's John Kinsey, 265 East River Park Circle, Fresno, California. I'm an attorney with Langer Jones Helsley, and I'm speaking in support of the project on behalf of the landowners along Elm Avenue. I represent several of those landowners and existing businesses along Elm Avenue that are also within the Southwest Specific Plan area. The reason, obviously, Bucetto is here is because their property was rezoned from industrial to residential as part of the 2017 Southwest Specific Plan process. Like Bucetto, my clients didn't receive notice that their properties would be downzoned from industrial to residential when the plan was adopted in 2017. We didn't get the opportunity to discuss those concerns with the city. Like Bucetto, my clients weren't invited as a stakeholder to participate in the steering committee process. Like Bucetto, my clients are seeking to get their zoning back, and in fact, they've been at it for many years, far longer than Bucetto. The primary difference is that between Elm Avenue and Bucetto is that my clients along Elm Avenue are fully built out. They were fully built out in the mid-2000s at the invitation of the city. They do not contemplate any new buildings, any new uses. And unlike Elm Avenue, of course, this project involves the construction of new structures and new industrial land uses. Elm Avenue employs thousands, not hundreds, of Fresnans, and those businesses and jobs are at risk because of the inconsistent zoning. That said, my clients support the Bucetto project and any other landowners who were not provided notice of the zone change as part of the Southwest Specific Plan process. We simply request that the city treat similarly situated properties equally, including the landowners along Elm Avenue. Therefore, the city should rezone both this project as well as Elm Avenue as quickly as possible. And finally, we also want to receive the same benefits from the city as a similarly situated property owner as Buceto with respect to SB 330. Thank you very much. I appreciate your time.
Thank you. Do we have any other individuals on Zoom who would like to speak? If you are, please raise your hand.
Michael?
Yes, good evening. And this is Mike Lozo. I'm an attorney based in Oakland, California at 1939 Harrison Street. I'm here on behalf of the Laborers International Union of North America, Local 294. And we submitted some comments during the M&D or the ND comment period, negative deck, I should say, as well as a letter we submitted later today. And we're concerned about the use of a negative declaration for the project. We did retain an expert biologist to visit at least the
Michael, my apologies to cut you off. We're still speaking in support of the project. Are you in support or are you in opposition?
I guess we were in opposition, so it wasn't clear to me whether I should raise my hand right at that moment.
No, that's not a problem. Let me go ahead and open this up to the public again and see if there's anyone in support of the project, and then I'll come back to you. Okay?
I apologize. Thank you.
No, not a problem. Any individuals who are in support of the project, please use the raise hand function. We'll let you speak.
No more hands.
All right. Now, any individuals within the chambers or online who are in opposition of the project, please, if you're on Zoom, raise your hand. We'll let you speak. Michael, we'll go ahead and let you speak first, okay?
Thank you again, and sorry for jumping the gun there.
Not a problem.
We did retain an expert biologist who did visit at least the edge of the site. Obviously, didn't wander onto the site, and he prepared a detailed comment raising concerns about the baseline review that was done. There was a brief visit made to sort of document wildlife at the site, and his visit to the site showed that there was a lot more wildlife there than was described in the negative declaration. He saw, for example, many bird species foraging at the site. He saw ground squirrel burrows, which are themselves prey for Swenson's hawks. Burrowing owls also may be using those burrows. There's potentially pond turtles from adjacent property on the water features there. He saw birds nesting and he photographed them on the site as well as foraging. So we think there's a significant disconnect between the negative declaration and its conclusion that the site could not support nesting, foraging, or other uses of wildlife at the site. So what he depicts is an expert comment, which is substantial evidence of demonstrating a fair argument of that the project may have a significant environmental effect, and as a result, rather than a negative declaration, an EIR is required. Dr. Smallwood also goes on about concerns about wildlife movement and habitat loss and things like that as well in his comments. And then today was just an additional supplemental comment where we had a consultant review the air modeling and some other aspects of the project, and they submitted some comments that we got late, so we submitted those for your review as well. So with that, we do think that it would be important for the city to prepare an EIR in lieu of the negative declaration before proceeding with the project. Thanks for your time.
Thank you very much. Do we have any members of the public who would like to speak in opposition of the project? If you are on Zoom, please use the raise hand function and we'll let you speak.
Lisa, again?
Hi, Lisa Flores, Tower District. Woohoo. I don't know if I'm for or against this project, but I do have some issues. First off, the gentleman that was speaking, that was the attorney on Elm Street. Yeah, dude. That's all I got to say about him. I do have issues with moving light industry here because of the number of pollutants. And I also have issues about traffic you're going to have almost 400 traffic movements coming in and out of the area of West and Church Street. You should not have any vehicles drive along Church, especially adding to congestion of the college, a school, and it should really be forced and limited to access off of Jensen. Also, too, I would like to know why the applicant isn't totally going electric trucks at this point, because that is the way of the future. That also takes down their footprint and their carbon footprint. As far as light industrial, I would like to know what sort of pollutants are they talking about? What sort of things are they going to be using? And also, too, I just don't like the whole issue of taking out potential housing when we are in the middle of a housing crisis here in Fresno. And who is paying for the stoplight? Are they putting money into like developer fees, into paying for $1 million light installation? Because that's how much traffic lights basically cost at this point at Jensen and West. And also, too, why aren't they promoting carpooling? And also, too, he talked about, my last comment is he talked about the majority of his employees come within a 5-mile range. How many of those employees come from 06? And what sort of internship are you going to give the community and residents of the 06 zip code in which this is in? Thank you.
Thank you very much. Do we have any other individuals who would like to speak in opposition? If you're on Zoom,
Yes, I have one more.
please state your name and address.
Good evening, Planning Commission. This is Kyle Lopez Schmidt. Wanted to speak on behalf of the Southwest Fresno specific planning process. My consulting business, Pop-Up Design and Development, was one of the community engagement consultants for that planning team. And that process was extensive in the community outreach of reaching hundreds of local residents multiple times, in large public meetings at Gaston Elementary School, Gaston Middle School, as well as an open public office at MLK and California in the Marcus Center there. And there was a specific working group on industrial compatibility. And this planning process, everybody was public noticed within the zoning area. So any statement from these business owners that they weren't outreach to is false, as well as Councilmember Baines was extremely proactive in talking with industrial land users on how to mitigate their impacts in the neighborhood, including spending years in trying to relocate Darling. But the community considered a lot of different iterations of that plan that included quote unquote clean industrial and light industrial options and mitigating those. And those were roundly just rejected by the community in the process, and really highlighted that the neighborhood needed to get this industrial out of the neighborhood. And so I stand in solidarity with those community members in my own neighborhood, battling with producers dairy expanding and having an industrial impact in ours, as well as being a student of Computech in Edison Middle School and experiencing that mass amount of pollution in the neighborhood. Further, if you look at their plan and what they're proposing, not just rezoning this property, but the impact on the property zoned adjacent as parks, and that idea of parks in Southwest Fresno are always next to these industrial uses and they're not healthy spaces. And the zoning amendment that the council is considering around intensifying mixed use zones should be done anyway, and not as a replacement for further concentrating industrial uses in Southwest Fresno and having this major negative impact. This isn't like the consolidation and being this cleaning up of a business, but actually a concentration of 4 different facilities in this one neighborhood. And that just is not acceptable based on what the community's vision in and what environmental standards are. So leave those comments to you. Thank you very much.
Thank you. Do we have any other individuals? If you're on Zoom, please use the raise hand function.
No more.
Would the applicant like to provide a rebuttal?
Yes, thank you. Armand Devedjian, again, the architect representing Bucetto Foods. To specifically discuss Mr. Lazo's comments, I'm going to ask for Bonique Emerson to discuss the environmental components. But before I ask her up, I did want to address Ms. Flores. Ms. Flores, you did say you don't know if you're in favor or you're opposed. I can appreciate that. I understand that this could be a 51-49 type of proposition for many people who are stakeholders in the community. I will say, however, in response to your questions, there are no pollutants. Because we are a food processing facility that takes meat, cures it, dries it, and then packages it, everything on site has to be edible. So at the end of the day, there are no chemicals that are used, there's no odor that is emitted, there is nothing, there's no smokestacks, there's no cooking, there's nothing that happens other than unpackaging frozen meat, cutting, curing, storing, dry storing, packaging, and shipping. So any chemical that is used, if I can even call it a chemical, is edible. So there's no pollutants. Regarding the traffic congestion, I disagree because there currently is significant traffic on Church Avenue anyway. We are actually decreasing the amount of traffic on Church by eliminating the narrowing of Church because of parking on Church, by taking all that surface street parking off of Church Avenue. Trucks that are currently using Church will no longer use Church to get to our facility. They'll be directed to Jensen Avenue. And if there were 220 homes on that parcel, that would significantly add more traffic to Church and to Jensen than having the employees that are going to be coming there regularly and parking at that facility. In terms of electric trucks, absolutely, I agree with Ms. Flores, 100%. Electric trucks is the goal. It's the way the state of California is moving. It's the way the industry is moving. It is the way Bucetto Foods wants to see it moving. It is not realistic today to expect 100% of the trucks coming onto the facility to be electric. The refrigeration units are electric. All of the components within the truck are electric. But the trucks themselves, for the next, is it 2 years or 3 years or 5 years, are going to continue to be traditional trucks that are using diesel gasoline to power them, the motors and the engines, to get to and from the facility. The final thing is there is a partnership agreement that we are currently negotiating and working on with the Cecil C. Hinton Center. Bucetto Foods is, for lack of a better term, going to be adopting that center and partnering with the board of Hinton Center at the city of Fresno to do 2 or 3 things. The first is to improve the current facility, aesthetically and infrastructure. Second, to set up a permanent way of providing for the energy payments. Frankly, the Hinton Center has not been able to make their PG&E bill payment. They're looking to the city to do it, and the city doesn't have the mechanism to do it. So Bucetto is very likely going to take over their regular PG&E payments for the Hinton Center. And the third thing is to setting up a program, whether it's sports-related or some other extracurricular activity, Bucetto would be adopting and establishing programs for the youth that are using the Hinton Center on a long-term basis. This has no sunset clause. So I believe those were, at least I hope I got all of Ms. Flores' comments. Mr. Lopez-Schmidt, I know you said that the property owner was notified. I do have to restate, Bucetto Foods was not notified of the rezone when it happened. We're not here to debate that. I'm not going to use that as the reason you should approve the rezone. I'm not using it as one of our major arguments to approve the rezone. It is just a minor point that I'm making. And the last thing, which led to some confusion on our part, there is no park in the proximity of our facility. There is a ponding basin. It's the largest ponding basin that Fresno Metropolitan Flood Control operates in Southwest Fresno. But it is not accessible to the public, and they can't use it as a quote-unquote park, if that's what Mr. Lopez Schmidt was referring to. So at this point, I'm going to invite Bonique to come up and to discuss the first round of environmental comments.
Good evening, Commissioners. Bonique Emerson with Precision Civil Engineering. We were the consultant who prepared the environmental assessment. I'm going to speak in regards to the comments from the Zoo Drury LLP. They submitted written comments on the record. There was a response prepared for their, responding to their comments. Unfortunately, it wasn't included in the Planning Commission packet. I could go through those items, but I'll just go ahead and speak at a high level. And if you guys have additional questions, you can ask me. The two areas where they raised concerns were on biology and energy. And I heard that they also just submitted comments on the air quality study. Unfortunately, I haven't seen those. I will say that there was a biological assessment, so a study that was prepared for the proposed project. And there was also an air quality, GHG, and health risk assessment prepared for the project, and that was prepared by Stantec. The biological assessment was thorough. Again, we have responses to every single comment that they've made, and we believe that none of their comments are valid. But again, I could speak to more specifics if you have any questions. Thank you.
Do we have any questions from the commission? No. Okay. So now I'll go ahead and close the hearing. I'll bring it back to the commission. Any commissioners have any questions or comments or motion that they would like to make?
I would like to make a motion that we approve the rezone.
I'll second. We have a motion made by Commissioner Wagner, second by Chair Vang. Please take vote.
Commissioner Kreiner?
No.
Commissioner Wagner?
Yes.
Commissioner Diaz?
Yes.
Commissioner Hardy?
Yes.
Chair Vang?
Yes. Motion passes. All right, next we have reports by secretary. Do we have anything?
I do not have any new information or report for tonight.
Okay. Next is unscheduled communication. Each speaker will have 3 minutes. Is anyone in the chamber who would like to comment? If you're a member of the public on Zoom and would like to comment, please use the raise hand function. If you're calling, dial *9. We have none in the chambers. Anyone online?
Yes, Mr. Lopez Schmidt again.
Go ahead and speak. You have 3 minutes.
Thank you, Planning Commission. Just want to bring into the space the South Tower neighborhood experience with Producers Dairy, where a whole environmental impact process has gone through for their truck rerouting process, and comments were given and studies have been done. But then that environmental impact report has been sat on in the city of Fresno and has not been brought to any sort of public vote or conclusion. Meanwhile, Producers has rerouted their trucks in partnership with the city of Fresno, and I think that's a violation of kind of our environmental standards within the neighborhood. We'd very much like this issue to be kind of brought forth and resolved, and the community be able to know what's going to happen with this industrial impact in our neighborhood. And potentially with our Tower District specific plan update coming in, that really be a forum for dealing with that process in a public way, and get it resolved and determined for how the neighborhood's going to move forward. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Do we have anyone else who would like to speak?
No additional hands at this time.
I see none. It's currently 8:50. Thank you, everyone. Meeting is adjourned.